Hello, my name is Darren, and I want to share 3 eerie stories I've collected from people who encountered strange, unsettling events in the snowy depths of winter. Each tale is told from the point of view of those who experienced them. Whether you believe them or not is up to you, but all 3 left a lasting chill on those who lived through these bizarre encounters.
My name is Lisa. My husband Tom and I wanted a quiet vacation in a remote mountainside chalet last winter. The chalet was tucked deep into a forest, about a mile away from the nearest ski resort. The idea of a cozy fireplace surrounded by softly falling snow sounded like heaven. Unfortunately, we soon realized we weren't as alone as we had hoped. The first day was wonderful, snuggling by the fire, sipping hot cocoa, and watching the snow drift. By evening, the power started flickering. We blamed the heavy snowfall for the shoddy electricity. Around 9 p.m., the lights went out completely. The only illumination came from our fireplace and the lanterns we'd brought along. Tom decided to check the generator outside, hoping he could get it running before the temperature dropped too low. As I sat by the window, trying to read with a flashlight, I saw a sudden glow in the distance, like someone was waving a flashlight among the trees. Curious, I tapped on the window to get Tom's attention. When he looked up, he didn't see anything. But I could still see it, a faint, bobbing light. It felt too deliberate to be a random camper. Then the light disappeared. Moments later, there was a rustling sound right outside the chalet, followed by what sounded like something scraping against the outer wall. Tom came inside, frustrated that he couldn't fix the generator. I told him about the light. He laughed it off, insisting maybe it was a lone skier or a resort staff member checking the area. We locked the doors and went to bed, hoping it was nothing. That hope didn't last long. Around midnight, we both woke up to a faint tapping on our bedroom window. We thought it could be a branch knocking in the wind, except the tapping was rhythmic, like knuckles on glass. Tom slid out of bed and took the flashlight. My heart pounded. Before he could even reach the window, the tapping stopped. He peered through a gap in the curtains but saw nothing but swirling snow. In the morning, we walked around the outside of the chalet. That's when we discovered fresh footprints in the snow leading directly beneath our bedroom window. They led toward the forest, where they merged with countless animal tracks and became impossible to follow. There was also a peculiar pattern scratched into the wooden siding of our chalet, as if someone had etched random lines on it with a sharp object. We spent the rest of the trip on edge. At night, we kept every curtain tightly closed and a lantern lit in the main room. Sometimes we heard footsteps crunching in the snow, but whenever we mustered the courage to look outside, we found nothing. On our last night, the lights finally came back on. My relief was overwhelming. We packed up at dawn the next day, not wanting to wait around for any more ghostly visits. We never found out who or what stalked our chalet on those bitterly cold nights. But every time winter comes, I remember that bobbing light in the woods and the slow, deliberate knocks on the glass.
My name is Steven. I was a senior in high school when I had one of the most unsettling experiences of my life. It happened during a freak blizzard. The roads were nearly impossible to navigate, but I was driving home from a late basketball practice that got canceled halfway through due to the storm. At just past 8 p.m., it was already dark, and my usual 15-minute commute was stretching past 45 minutes. As I crawled along the winding country road, the wind howled across my windshield, piling drifts of snow against roadside fences. Then I noticed a figure up ahead. It was a man walking on the shoulder, wearing a tattered coat and jeans. No hat, no gloves, no apparent protection from the frigid wind. He was limping. Instinct told me to keep driving. It was too dangerous to stop. But guilt got the better of me, so I slowed down, rolled down my window slightly, and asked if he needed help. He looked at me with sunken eyes and asked if I could take him to the gas station a couple miles ahead. I agreed, feeling uneasy but not wanting to abandon him in the cold. When he got into the passenger seat, I noticed something off about him. His fingertips looked raw, almost bluish. He told me his name was Art, but said little else. The only thing he mentioned was how cold he was, and he kept rubbing his hands together, occasionally staring at me with an odd intensity. I tried turning up the heat, but my old car's heater barely worked. We moved forward slowly through the snow. After about 5 minutes, I made some small talk about the storm. Art just stared forward, muttering something about, "It finds you when you're alone." I had no clue what he meant, but a chill ran down my spine. Before we could reach the gas station, Art insisted I pull over. He claimed he recognized a trailer on the side of the road as his place. I tried telling him we weren't at the station yet, but he became agitated, repeating over and over that he had to get out. That's when things got truly scary. As soon as I stopped, he fumbled with the door, pushed it open, and stumbled outside into the darkness. Then, in the red glow of my brake lights, I saw him turn toward the trees and literally vanish between the branches. Stunned, I sat there a moment, engine idling. No footprints, no movement, just a swirl of snow in my headlights. I drove off, anxious to get home. The next day, curious and still spooked, I asked the local sheriff's deputy if he knew anyone named Art who lived in a trailer near that stretch of road. He sighed and shook his head. There used to be a guy named Arthur living out there, but that trailer burned down last winter. He froze to death in the snow before anyone found him. Hearing that, I felt my heart drop. Had I just given a ride to some ghostly hitchhiker? Or was it simply a desperate wandering man who recognized the wreckage of his old trailer? I still don't know. But every winter night I drive that route, I can't help looking to the roadside, half expecting to see Art limping through the snow again.
My name is Ruth. When I was in my early 20s, a group of college friends and I decided to spend a weekend in a rental cabin by a frozen lake. It was off-season, so we got a great deal. Our plan was simple: ice skate on the lake during the day and enjoy bonfires at night. But what started as a relaxing getaway turned into a nightmare. The first day was fantastic. Blue skies, crisp air. The lake's ice was thick enough for skating. By evening, clouds rolled in. A heavy snowfall began, forcing us inside. The cabin had a big picture window that offered a spectacular view of the lake. We sat in the living room, playing card games and telling ghost stories, the snow falling heavily just beyond the glass. At some point, my friend Kara noticed something out on the lake, a single, dark figure walking across the ice. It was far from the shoreline, all by itself. It struck us as strange because there was no other cabin around for miles, and the snowfall was intense. Why would anyone be out there? We watched the figure, half joking it was a lake ghost or some adventurous fisherman. But then it seemed to slow down and eventually stop. It remained motionless for a long time, even after darkness fell. We pressed our faces against the window, trying to see through the snowy haze, but the figure disappeared. Hours later, in the dead of night, we all heard a noise on the deck. It sounded like footsteps crunching on freshly fallen snow. My friend Kyle grabbed a flashlight and flicked it on through the window. For a split second, we saw someone in a heavy coat standing right against the glass door leading into the cabin, face obscured by frost. Kyle shouted, and the figure darted away. We scrambled to lock every door and window, adrenaline pumping. Outside, the footprints led around the cabin and straight down toward the lake. Despite the howling wind, we could see them clearly under the moonlight. Things got worse a few hours later. Sometime around 3 a.m., we woke up to a pounding on the front door. It was forceful, like someone trying to break it down. We all yelled that we had called the police, though in truth, our phones had no signal out there. The pounding stopped. Scared out of our minds, we decided to pack up and leave. The snow was still falling hard, and driving might have been risky, but staying felt more dangerous. We gathered our stuff as fast as possible. Through a window, we noticed that the footprints now led back up from the lake and circled our cars. It was as though someone had been checking them out. We braved the storm, got into our vehicles, and drove to the nearest ranger station, arriving just before sunrise. We reported what happened, but there was no sign of forced entry on the cabin when they later investigated. No suspicious figure was ever found. Some of our footprints had filled in with fresh snow, and so had the unknown prints. Yet to this day, none of us can forget that face at the door.
Snowy nights and remote places have an uncanny way of amplifying our worst fears. From mysterious lights outside a dark cabin, to strangers on desolate roads, or eerie figures crossing frozen lakes, Winter can be both beautiful and unforgiving. Whether these events were caused by desperate people, lost souls, or something beyond explanation, each story serves as a reminder. Isolation and cold bring out the strangest encounters. If you ever find yourself alone in the snow, keep your eyes open, your doors locked, and your instincts sharp. Winter nights have a way of revealing what we least expect, and it's never wrong to trust that feeling at the back of your mind telling you something's not quite right. Stay safe out there, and thanks for listening.